Regular meeting number 15 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Mitch Brown, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome Reverend Vernon Samples from Tabernacle Baptist Church to lead us in prayer. Reverend, welcome to council, sir.
Thank you, sir. Let us pray. Lord, we pray for the peace of our nation, the people of the state of Ohio, and the city of Columbus. We ask for your blessings and guidance. Give the Columbus City Council wisdom and insight for the betterment of all its people. Lord, we pray for the victims of crime and violence in our community. We know that violence has invaded our city, and we know the sorrow that it brings. We ask that you will heal the hurt and restore the peace. We pray for the men and women of law enforcement who are charged to protect and serve. Surround them with your protection. May their decisions, judgment, and actions bring honor to you as they stand on the front line as your peacekeepers. Remember our judges and probation officers, our firefighters, and all those who hold public office. Guard their hearts and their minds. Protect them in body and spirit. Lord, help us to encourage our leaders to be strong in their faith, to accept their responsibility, and to discharge their duties with strength, courage, and conviction under your watchful care. God, bless this United States of America, the state of Ohio, the city of Columbus, our mayor, the city council members. Now thanks be to God who gives us the victory. Therefore be steadfast, unmovable, always excelling in the work of the Lord, because you know that when you do your work in the Lord's name, it is not in vain. This is our prayer, O Lord, our God. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Samples. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, Clerk. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
This week's communications received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
About resolutions from member of council. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown? Not this time. Councilmember Miss Brown? Councilmember Hardin? Councilmember Page?
Thank you, President Klein. I have a few announcements. This is Easter season, and we have a couple of egg hunts that will be hosted at our recreation centers across the city. And I would just encourage all family and young people to go to our Recreation and Parks website to find out the times and the location that's closest to your neighborhood at our community center. And we also are going to have the Metropolitan Youth Foundation, who is partnering with Howard Community Center for the 18th annual All-Star Saturday, which is Central Ohio's largest egg hunt. And it's this Saturday, March 26th at 10 a.m. And lastly, in efforts of Columbus City Council as well as the mayor to increase the nonviolence initiative throughout spring break, Radio 1, in partnership with Recreation and Parks, will be hosting pop-up parties at various community centers during spring break. The first party will be held this Thursday, March 24th from 3 to 5 at Linden Community Center, while 107.5 will be broadcasting live. Mayor Ginther will also make an appearance, and I would just like to encourage anyone who's available from 3 to 5 to stop by Linden Community Center and help support our young people. Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, Councilmember Page. Councilmember Stinziano?
Thank you, President Klein. I have two resolutions. First, I'd like to invite Tony Bernard, Vice President of Services and Advocacy at the Ohio Buckeye Chapter of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, to please come forward to the podium. We weren't sure if he was here already. Excellent. As he comes forward, I'd like to introduce Resolution 54X-2016, declaring this March as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. Currently in Ohio, there are more than 20,000 people diagnosed with MS, a disease that generally strikes people in the prime of their life, between ages 20 through 50, and causes unpredictable effects in which the progression, severity, and specific symptoms cannot be foreseen, and the cause and cure of this often deliberate disease remains unknown. Therefore, it is my hope that by declaring March as MS Awareness Month, that we as a city can help recognize the importance of finding the cause and cure of MS while expressing our appreciation and admiration for the dedication that the National Multiple Sclerosis Society Ohio Buckeye Chapter has shown toward a future free of MS. Any comments from my colleagues on council? If there are no comments, then I move for adoption of the resolution.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Tony, welcome to council, and the podium is all yours.
I think you said it well already, and I want to thank you on behalf of the MS Society. We do represent about 20,000 Ohioans that are living with the effects of MS, and thank you in helping us create awareness during this month as we try to eradicate this disease. So thank you very much.
President Klein, the other resolution I have tonight is being co-sponsored by Council Members Elizabeth Brown and Councilmember Shannon Hardin. We would like to invite, it's a long list, Sherry Palmer, along with her Kick Butt Planning Committee family, Robert Seed, Stacy Law, Patrick Lynch, Patrick Affurit, Robbie Banks, Scott Hemlick, Derek Gresso, Belinda Taylor, and Connie Hale to come down to the front for recognition as we introduce Resolution 66X-2016 to recognize and celebrate Kick Butt Columbus in partnership with Keep Columbus Beautiful. As they make their way down, I will share, and as some of our council members know, we had the pleasure of enjoying a cool 34-degree Saturday morning with about 4,200 individuals this weekend from around Columbus, where we launched at Westgate Park, marking the 8th annual Kick Butt Columbus event, which I think all that were there felt was a huge success. There were 40 teams who focused on cleaning up 148 ramp areas at 39 interchange locations throughout Columbus. They are committed to making that difference in gateway areas to our neighborhoods. The numbers are always impressive yet frustrating at the same time, as I think anyone on the planning committee knows. 757 bags were collected, 2 30-yard roll-off dumpsters were filled, 1,290 bags of recyclables were also collected. But I think I speak on behalf of all of us here to say thank you for all you do as a planning committee, for your ongoing efforts, and for such a wonderful event. Do any members of the council or Director Gallagher have any comments?
I'd just like to add my special thanks. It was really great to see the energy there on Saturday, and all the volunteers. Sherry and Stacy and Michael and I snapped a photo, and in it you can see like the snow in front of our faces for that period there where it was snowing Saturday. But as great as the event was, what was also cool is you do such a good job of making sure the whole city knows what you're doing. Because as I was going about my busy day on Saturday, I saw so many Kick Butt Columbus signs and the trash that the amazing volunteers had put together. So while you launched out of Westgate Park, I know that regardless of where you launched, the whole city heard and saw your activity. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, well, this is overwhelming as always. President Klein and Councilmember Stinziano, Councilmember Brown, Councilmember Hardin, and all of you who we feel are champions of our Keep Columbus Beautiful program and certainly supporters of fighting the battle of ongoing litter in the city. We are a passionate group. We, 3 people in Keep Columbus Beautiful, Robert Seed and Stacy Law. But these folks here on our planning committee, they stand for every aspect in our community that fights litter. We have Belinda Taylor with CODA. We know there's litter problems, unfortunately, at the CODA bus stops. We have Connie Hale with NAI Ohio Equities. She's a commercial realtor, and we know curb appeal for real estate is critical for everything that we do. Our landscapers, Patrick Afforda and Patrick Lynch, they beautify our city. That's the benefit of a clean city, is then the results of having a beautiful city. And of course, our young professionals, Derek couldn't be with us tonight, but they're the future. We want them engaged and involved in the issues that pertain to having a thriving and vibrant city, and they're our next neighborhood generation. So it's critical for their involvement and engagement in litter. We also are very thankful for Scott Heimlich's work. He has been an amazing supporter with all the restaurants contributing. And of course, you know, volunteers are hungry people, so we have to feed them. So we thank him. I want to thank each of you, but I also tonight want to ask something of each of you, and that is, let's work collaboratively together to put together a plan to really bring some resolution to our litter problem. We have such a great city. And I think that we, as Keep Columbus Beautiful, want to lessen our abatement efforts and make them more strategic. And we need your help in doing that. We have a passionate group of area commissions and civic associations and block watches. And I think if we organize and ask for their support, and particularly our businesses, and of course our law enforcement, we can be a model city on the battle, on the first effort of grassroots problems like litter and graffiti. And then we can work on planting flowers. Thank you. And anybody else want to say anything? All right, we are honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments, Sherry. Did Director Gallagher have any comments?
Thank you, Councilman Stinziano, Council President Klein, and other members of Council. Just thank you for recognizing Sherry and her team and all their leadership and passion. This is their 8th year together, and so they keep getting stronger and stronger, and we appreciate everything they do and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. If no other comments from council members, I move for passage.
Second. Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. I have one resolution. I'm going to ask Danielle Smith to come to the podium, and her guests can also walk with her. It's and resolution number 0076X-2016 is to honor and recognize the month of March as Professional Social Work Month, whereas the primary mission of social work is to enhance human beings and to help meet the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable. Whereas social workers make a critical impact in adolescent and youth development, aging, family caregiving, child protection and family services, healthcare navigation, mental and behavioral health treatment, military and veterans assistance, nonprofit management, community development, and poverty reduction. Whereas social workers seek to improve social functioning and social conditions for people with emotional, psychological, economic, and/or physical needs. And whereas social workers are experts in care coordination, case management, therapeutic treatment for psychosocial issues, and have roles in more than 50 different fields of practice. And whereas social workers believe that a nation's strength depends on the ability of the majority of its citizens to lead productive and healthy lives. And whereas social workers help people who are often navigating major life challenges find hope and new options for achieving their maximum potential. And whereas social workers identify and address gaps in social systems that impede full participation by individuals or groups in society. Whereas the National Association of Social Workers, NASW, has more than 140,000 members, the largest member organization for licensed social workers in the United States. And whereas NASW Ohio chapter helps advocate for policies that bring society and communities together by promoting social justice, advocating for LGBT rights, hosting events and workshops that further the professional development of social workers and training social workers to be leaders in the community. And whereas NASW Ohio chapter, with more than 5,000 members throughout the state of Ohio, is the largest provider of mental health services in the state, making our communities better by supporting child welfare, services to the aging, and more. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Columbus that this council does hereby honor and recognize the month of March as Professional Social Work Month. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And now Danielle Smith, who is the Executive Director for the and Social Worker of the Ohio chapter. The podium is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Thank you, Columbus City Council, for recognizing March as Social Work Month. Ohio is home to more than 27,000 licensed social workers, and many of them live here in Columbus, serving many of our city's population. I was looking at your agenda for the day, and we have literally thousands of members who work at the agencies that you all fund and make decisions about. So thank you for honoring social work, and thank you for all that you do to help our citizens that are most vulnerable. Thank you for the resolution.
Thank you. And I have an announcement on March the 24th from 9 until 2 is the official State of Ohio kickoff for the 2016 Health Expo and Award Ceremony for Minority Health Month. Minority Health Month is April, and the kickoff is this week. And so just want to share with the listening and viewing audience that please come to the Rife Center, 77 South High Street. The expo will give you lots of information, have screenings, will be available. Awards will be presented to the Minority Health Month kickoff sponsors across the state of Ohio. I also want to share that on March the 29th, we will kick off Minority Health Month in council chambers by having a hearing on minority health. The hearing will be, we'll have two separate hearings because there's a lot of information that we want to share with our community regarding minority health. And so the March the 29th at 3:30, we will have our Minority Health Month hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Are there any comments by our elected officials? Auditor Dorian? City Attorney? I don't see any representatives from the judicial branch here. At this time, I request that the following ordinances be removed from the consent action portion of the agenda in Health and Human Services: 556, 577, 650, 658-2016. Are there any other requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda? May we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation by the city clerk? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 489 and 616-2016. Environment Committee, ordinance 541-2016. Housing Committee, ordinance 586-2016. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 500, 522, and 563-2016. Rules and Reference Committee, ordinances 84, 86, and 87-2016.
The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Resolutions of expression 65X, 60X, 61, 62, 63, and 64X-2016. Finance Committee, ordinances 664 and 698-2016. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 491, 555, 557, 558, 559, 560, 561, 575, 608, 648, 651, 652, 653, 654-2016. Public Safety Committee, ordinances 581, 667-2016. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Resolution 45X-2016. Ordinances 554, 646, 692-2016. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 341, 356, 357, 370, 374, 380, 585, and 666-2016. Housing Committee, ordinance 628-2016. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 2778, 2780, 2781, 3203-2015, and ordinances 230, 292, 365, 384, 399, 411, 508, 516, and 682-2016. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, ordinances 630 and 631-2016.
Thank you, Clerk. We do have one speaker for the consent action portion of the agenda. That's Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to council.
(1612) Arlington Avenue, Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins, the chairman, solely vacant and abandoned property in North Linden area. I would like for y'all to explain what is assessments on vacant property when they are torn down, and again, how do y'all get to this idea of assessments when taxes ain't being paid or property ain't being well kept up? I would just like to know more details. What are assessments into demolition? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. I would ask perhaps the best person to follow up with you after the meeting or over the break is Mr. Harris from the Department of Development, Deputy Director Harris. So if you could do that over the break, I'd really appreciate it. Any other questions or comments about the consent action portion of the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve these items designated as consent actions? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Hardin? Yes. Page? Stinziano? Yes. Tyson?
We abstain.
That's fine. What I'd like to do, since we already have a motion, is move to reconsider our motion. May I have a motion to reconsider, and then we'll take up the consent action portion of the agenda by voice. Okay. So this is for the motion to reconsider. Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Hardin?
Yes.
Page? Stinziano? Tyson? President Klein?
Yes, motion to reconsider passes. Now I'd like to have a motion to approve the consent action portions by voice.
Ms. Brown?
Is there a second on the motion? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Ms. Brown?
Yes, with the exception of number 560-2016, on which I am abstaining.
Mr. Brown? Hardin? Page? Stinziano?
Yes, with the exception of 561-2016, of which I abstain.
Tyson?
Yes, with the exception of 0559-2016, of which I am abstaining.
President Klein?
Yes, with the exception of 558-2016, on which I'm abstaining. Motion for the consent agenda passes with the noted exceptions. We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. The first committee is the Finance Committee, chaired by President Pro Tem Tyson. President Pro Tem Tyson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Have ordinance number 0499-2016 is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into 2 contracts for the option to purchase small electric motors with W.W. Granger, Inc. and GD Supply, Inc., doing business as Johnstown Supply, to waive relevant provisions of the Columbus City Code relating to the competitive bidding provisions process, and to authorize expenditure of $2 to establish contracts from the general fund. Solicitation was done with through the Department of the Purchasing Office, and the solicitation stated it was the city's intention to make at least 3 awards to maximize the selection and available discounts for small electric motors. However, the 2 lowest bidders can provide all the requested manufacturers needed for the city agencies to make their purchases. A waiver of regulation is being submitted to award to multiple suppliers, as the code does not envision multiple awards for the same items. I'd like to move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Passed.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 0565-2016. It's to authorize and direct the Finance and Management Director to issue purchase orders with Benchmark Biodiesel, Inc. for the provision of biodiesel and ultra-low sulfur diesel fuels, to authorize the expenditure of $1.5 million from the Fleet Management Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Passed.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 0568-2016 to authorize and direct the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders with Great Lakes Petroleum Company and Benchmark Biodiesel, Inc. for the purchase of bulk fuel, and MPC Investments, LLC for credit card fuel purchases, and to authorize expenditure of $3 million from the Fleet Management Services Fund, and to declare an emergency. $2 million will be for the credit card purchasing, and then the other $1 million is for bulk delivery. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. I would now like to move to Health and Human Services. Thank you. The next ordinance is 0490-2016 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a reproductive health and wellness program grant from the Ohio Department of Health, to authorize the appropriation of $720,000 in grant money and fee revenues from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department's grants fund, and to declare an emergency. The reproductive health and wellness program will allow for women's health services, including family planning, and eligible patients will include women from the Columbus Public Health Women's Health Services Program at postpartum, and women who have had a negative pregnancy test through our walk-in pregnancy testing service. Last year, these dollars supported 3,200 women. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 0562-2016. Is to approve the grant applications of various social service agencies seeking financial assistance to address an emergency human service need pursuant to Columbus City Code, to authorize the Director of Development to execute grant agreements with various social service agencies to address and provide for multiple service multiple human service needs, to authorize the expenditure of $1,757,594 from the Emergency Human Services Fund, and to authorize the expenditure of $1,757,594 from the General Fund, and to declare an emergency. This is the second year of the 3-year competitive grant award process, which was put in place to achieve the following objectives: to support goal-oriented, outcome-based social service programs and activities that will address critical needs. This legislation also focuses on emergency and basic needs, employment and self-sufficiency, and social success for our residents and our neighborhoods. I want to highlight we held 2 hearings on this legislation, the first being on March 3rd and the second hearing on March 16th. These hearings were an opportunity for our organizations being funded to present an update on their programs, especially as it relates to their outcomes, which reflects the effectiveness in serving the residents in our community. And I would like to, I have a speaker on this legislation, and I'm going 2 speaker slips, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to ask Mr. George Walker, who is in support of the legislation, to come to the podium and speak on this legislation. Good evening, Mr. Walker.
Good evening, President Klein, Pro Temp Tyson, City Council members. You know, I can remember a little, if you would have asked me when I was 10 years old, I would have probably told you, wow, why would you invest your money into social services? Because I was jealous. I had a dad that worked for St. Stephen's Community House. So I wanted my dad to be home with me, be running with me. But Dad was a community man. He believed in the community, and he believed in the city of Columbus. So St. Stephen's called him. So, you know, today I was sitting at McDonald's and a gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey, are you George Walker?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You know what? Your dad, when my house got burned down at 3 o'clock in the morning, he came and actually helped us to find another place." He says, tell your dad thank you. My family says thank you. Because if it wasn't for St. Stephen's Community House, we wouldn't have no place to stay. I said, wow. You know what, the funny thing is that I said, I'm going down to speak at City Council today. And I said, you know, I wrote down a whole bunch of notes, but I tore them up as I got in here. Because I don't need no notes to tell you what 1500 East 17th Avenue means to our community and mean to the city of Columbus. Anyone with a humanistic need or anything, they can get that at St. Stephen's Community House. And I can't see no one not funding St. Stephen's Community House. And if they do, if they don't, I'm wondering what type of person that person is. You know, I'm the chair of South Linden, and the thing of it is that whenever, and if you notice, I called out the address because I use that address at least 5 to 6 times daily because our community have to have it. When they come and knock on my door, when I stay over there on 23rd, when they knock on my door and they say, "I'm hungry," I tell them to go to St. Stephen's Community House and they'll take care of them. Not only that, I can remember I used to ask Dad, I said, you know what? How could people come and get food there? And I remember him telling me, he says, people have needs. And I'm going to tell you, It's all walks of life that comes there to get those needs. It's not just our community. It's the city of Columbus. So I know that you only give me a time frame, but I could sit up here and talk about St. Stephen's Community House for a long, long time. And again, thank you for listening to me.
Appreciate you coming down. Thank you, Mr. Walker.
The next speaker is Rebecca Peacock Craig. She's in support of this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. The last time I was here, my name is Rebecca Peacock Craig. And last time I was here, I cried. I promised myself I wouldn't cry this time, but I don't know how I can follow that. I am proud to represent the best and brightest at St. Stephen's Community House. The symbol on the front of my shirt represents that we serve from womb to tomb, and that's a great responsibility. With your help, we have been brightening lives since 1919. I'm the coordinator of the Food and Nutrition Center there, which was part of our Emergency Services Department. Many would refer to us as the food pantry. But a little over 2 years ago, we were blessed by Ohio Health to remodel our food pantry. At that time, we changed our name along with our concept from a food pantry to a food and nutrition center. It was a conscious effort to inform those around us of how we can now make healthier choices. With the help of the Columbus City Health Department, we implemented their call to choose water first for thirst. We have wanted to encourage fresh produce, and again, with the help of the Columbus City Health Department, we made the message and our environment match. Now shoppers fill half their cart with fresh food and vegetables. Meat is often very difficult to provide, so we do all we can to provide a protein, but it may not always be a meat. And I am the only vegetarian that I know that thinks about and prays for meat night and day. Partnering is where it's at, and we've partnered with OSU Extension Services, Children's Hunger Alliance, and many others to provide weekly nutrition services. We serve 8 zip codes, and families can return once every 30 days for a 3-day supply of emergency food. But in this position, I have found that hunger is not the problem. Hunger is the symptom. People are hungry because they don't make enough money to make ends meet. People are hungry because they've worked all their lives to now find their mature years that they are unable to pay the rent, buy medicine, and pay utilities. People are hungry because their car broke down and now they can't buy food and pay the rent. People are hungry because they have jobs that aren't serving them from paycheck to paycheck. In the spirit of true settlement house, and in the words of Martin Luther King Jr., I have the audacity to believe that people in this city can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. And I thank you for all your help to that end.
Thank you, Ms. Peacock Craig, for coming down, and certainly this legislation that, if my colleagues will pass tonight, is certainly meeting significant needs in our community. Your organization is one of those, but we have many that are on this list that are meeting needs from daycare to substance abuse to prevention programs, refugee and resettlement programs, senior care, mediation services, services for the disabled, material assistance, food programs, as you mentioned, workforce development, youth programs, and other services. So it's critically important that we're supporting these social service agencies because they are meeting tremendous needs in our community. Thank you for coming down. I don't know if there are any other comments from my council members. Thank you. I'd move for passage of this legislation supporting our social service agencies.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. If you turn to page 7, I have Ordinance number 556-2016. It's to approve the funding request of Adam Board of Franklin County seeking financial assistance to address an emergency human service need pursuant to Columbus City Code, to authorize the Director of Development to execute a grant agreement with Adam H. Board of Franklin County to provide mental health and substance abuse prevention services, to authorize the expenditure of $124,472.37 from the Emergency Human Service Fund, and to authorize the expenditure of $164,326.63 from the General Fund, and to declare an emergency. This legislation targets a service agency that will work with community-based agencies on behalf of the City of Columbus to provide a direct substance abuse prevention services for our youth. And this funding will allow the process to continue the much-needed services. The reason I highlighted this legislation is because we have to work on make sure that our young people are not getting involved in drugs. Councilmember Mitchell Brown and I had some conversations about that today, and we've got to do a lot of work around keeping our young people from getting involved in drugs so that they are not then changing the wonderful trajectory of their lives. And so this is an important piece of legislation to help our young people just to continue to live out their potential. So with that, I'd ask my council members' support and to move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 577-2016. It's to authorize and direct the Board of Health to accept a grant from the Medical Mutual of Ohio Charitable Fund through the Columbus Foundation for the Institute of Active Living in the amount of $45,000, to authorize the appropriation of $45,000 to the Health Department in the city's private grants fund and declare an emergency. This grant will be utilized to create a new youth cycling clubs, to develop small gardens at early childhood centers, and to support and expand the Veggie Snaps and the Farmers Market Nutrition Incentive Program. I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Ordinance 0650-2016 is to authorize the Board of Health to enter into a contract with AIDS Resource Center, Ohio Medical Center for the provision of HIV-related somatic medical care and medical case management services for persons living with HIV or AIDS in Delaware, Fairfield, Franklin, Licking, Madison, Morrow, Pickaway, and Union counties, and to authorize expenditure of $764,713 from the Health Department's Grants Fund. I'm highlighting this particular ordinance because it is focusing really on the medical services that are key to individuals in this community who have HIV or AIDS, so that they can achieve the viral suppression, which improves their quality of life and reduces the risk of spreading the infection. There are 2,400 individuals who use these services, 1,300 for primary or infectious disease medical care, 1,800 receive medical case management, 350 will receive mental health and substance abuse treatment, and 600 will receive housing assistance. This legislation, coupled with, there are a number of pieces of legislation in consent that we didn't read, but the legislation tonight focusing on HIV and AIDS is $2,273,984 to support this illness in our community and to help people live the best quality of life. And hopefully, if you are in the viewing or listening audience and you need services for individuals for yourself or other individuals, please contact the AIDS Resource Center to be able to get those services. And I'd like to ask my colleagues for support and move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And the last piece of legislation is 0658-2016. It's to authorize the appropriation of $358,524 from the unappropriated balance of the General Government Grants Fund to the Health Department for the 2016 HOPA program and to declare an emergency. This program, again, provides long-term comprehensive strategies for meeting the housing needs, in other words, medical needs, the housing needs of low-income persons with HIV and AIDS and their families. And eligible activities include providing housing information services, resource resource identification, rehabilitation, conversion, lease, and repair facilities to provide housing and services, new construction of housing units, helping to pay for short-term rent, mortgage, utility payments, just to help these individuals to move forward. A total of 102 households received those services last year. 99 received tenant-based assistance, and 4 received permanent housing services, and then short-term, and 102 received supportive services. It's just key that tonight we're really focusing a lot on the services for HIV and AIDS individuals in our community, and hopefully please take advantage of these services. Thank you. That's all I have in my committee.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Our next committee is the Public Service and Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Hardin. Councilmember Hardin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. This evening in Public Service and Transportation Committee, we have Ordinance 0779-2016 to amend the 2015 capital improvement budget to authorize the city auditor to transfer cash and appropriation within the Streets and Highways Improvement Fund within the Department of Public Service, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code for this project, to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with HNTB Ohio, Inc. for engineering, technical, and surveying services in connection with the Smart City Challenge project, to authorize the expenditure of up to $150,000 from the Streets and Highways Improvements Fund and Smart City Challenge Grant Fund of up to $100,000 and to declare an emergency. Last week, I spoke in my comment section about the Smart City Challenge and applauded public service city partners in making it to the next round, which are 7 cities that have been bold enough to think about transportation in a new way, in a smart way. This piece of legislation matches the $100,000 that comes with this second round, with another $150,000 to move the process forward. We removed the competitive bidding because the folks that worked on this, HNTB Ohio, are the ones that helped us get this far into the grant. With that, Director, do you have any additional comments?
I do not this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. If I don't have questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
President Klein, if it's all right, I move to Small Minority Business and Development Committee. Thank you. So last week, we also talked about our SIDS, our amazing SIDS throughout the city. This evening, I'm putting forth resolutions to codify these plans or adopt these plans for the SIDS. Last week, we approved the disbursement for all 5 of the SIDS, in addition to accepting the certified petition for the 3 SIDS I mentioned. So I'll read through and then move for passage. First, we have Resolution 0042X-2016 to approve the plan for improvements and services to be provided by the Capital Crossroads Special Improvement District of Columbus, Inc., and to approve the properties of the municipal corporation in said plan for improvements and services. No question or comments. I'll move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Next, we have 0043X-2016 to approve the plan for improvements and services to be provided by the Morse Road Special Improvement District of Columbus, Inc., and to approve the properties of the municipal corporation in said plan for improvement and services. No questions or comments. I'll move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Next, we have 0044X-2016 to approve the plan for improvements and services to be provided by the Short North Special Improvement District, Inc., and to approve properties of the municipal corporation in said plan for improvements and services. No questions or comments. I'll move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And last, I have 0638-2016 to authorize the Department of Development to enter into contract with the Columbus Chamber of Commerce for the administrative costs associated with the implementation of the Diversity Bridge Initiative, and to authorize expenditure of up to $40,000 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. This ordinance funds the Diversity Bridge Initiative launched by the Columbus Chamber in partnership with the City of Columbus several years ago to cultivate the growth of minority and women-owned businesses in Columbus. These are businesses that are at least 51% owned by one or more persons of racial minority group or are female. Diversity Bridge assists in connecting these businesses and becoming certified enterprises and gaining access to local, state, and national networks to make them competitive for public and private contracts. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
That's all I have in my committees this evening. Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, Councilmember Hardin. The next committee is the Recreation and Parks Committee, chaired by Councilmember Jiza Page. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. We have two ordinances in Recreation and Parks this evening. The first one is to continue to support the various summer recreation programs that we provide to our young people throughout the summer, and it's Ordinance 334-2016. To authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Liberty Farm to provide horseback riding instruction for CRPD summer camp, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to set up an auditor certificate to establish purchase orders for the 2016 budget year, and to authorize the expenditure of $21,600 from the Recreation and Parks Operating Fund. I know that the horseback riding program is one of our more popular ones, and would definitely urge my colleagues to support this ordinance. And Deputy Director Rakowski, if you could speak briefly to why we are waiving the competitive bidding provisions.
Chairwoman Page, President Klein, and members of City Council, this is the only established horse riding camp that is within the borders of the City of Columbus. So it's really the only one. There are some that have more mobile facilities, but no set facilities. So this is the one that is located within the city's borders, and that's why we're asking for the waiver.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. And our second ordinance this evening is 352-2016. To authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into an agreement with Class Acts Columbus Incorporated to provide professional and fiscal services for 2016 programs. To authorize the expenditure of $71,000 from Recreation and Parks Special Purpose Fund and $74,000 from Recreation and Parks Operating Fund for a total of $145,000. To waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes and to declare an emergency. Deputy Director Rakowski, if you could speak briefly to waiving the competitive bidding provisions.
Chairwoman Page, President Klein, members of council, as you know, this company has been working with the department for years in regard to our large events. They're familiar with the process. They manage all of the contracts with the performers, the vendors, the beverage contract that we have for Jazz and Rib Fest and the Rhythm on the River, and that's why we're asking for the waiver. It's really not practical to bring somebody else in after this group has had the kind of experience that they have with all of our events.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein.
Our final committee this evening is the Utilities Committee. Councilmember Stinziano chairs that committee. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Tonight in the Public Utilities Committee, we have Ordinance 502-2016. To authorize the Director of Public Utilities to execute a construction contract with Schneider Electric Buildings America for the water distribution SCADA system upgrade, control center improvements, and wireless ring telemetry project, to authorize a transfer and expenditure of up to $5,236,568.50 within the Water Go Bonds Fund for the Division of Water and to authorize an amendment to the 2015 capital improvement budget. For those wondering what SCADA stands for, it's the Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System. And this ordinance is for the procurement, upgrade, and installation of that system. The SCADA system operates the City of Columbus water distribution system that serves 274,000 customers and covers a growing population of 1.2 million people. The SCADA system allows Operation Control Center staff to remotely monitor and operate a complex system of 13 primary water pressure districts with 99 water pumps, 37 water storage tanks, 22 pressure regulating valves, and 2 control valves at nearly 90 locations throughout the distribution system. That all sounds a lot, but I had the opportunity to take a tour last Monday, and it's all done in one very smart laid out control center. And so if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, and President Klein.
That is all I have tonight in my committees.
Is there any other business to come before council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We will reconvene at 6:30 for zoning for regular meeting number 16. We do stand adjourned, and we'll take non-agenda speakers, which we have several, momentarily. Regular meeting number 16 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Any communications and reports received by the city clerk?
No, there are not.
Are there any first readings of 30-day legislation?
No, there are none.
We'll now go to the zoning committee. All members serve on that committee, and Councilmember Page chairs that committee. Councilmember Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Klein. Our first ordinance this evening is 605-2016 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332.037 R2F Residential District, 3312.21 D1 Landscaping and Screening, 3312.25 Maneuvering, 3312.51 Loading Space, 3332.18 D Basis of Computing Area, 3332.21D Building Lines, 3332.25 Maximum Side Yards Required, 3332.26 Minimum Side Yard Permitted, and 3332.28 Side or Rear Yard Obstruction of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 933 East Gay Street, 43205, to permit office, parking, and limited storage uses with reduced development standards in the R2F Residential District, and to repeal ordinance number 1867-2003, passed July 18, 2003. The applicant is Community Properties of Ohio Management Services, LLC, in care of Thomas F. Kibbe, attorney. The proposed use is office, parking, and limited storage uses. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Near East Area Commission recommended approval. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage of this ordinance.
Second.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Our next ordinance is 0617-2016 to rezone 3780 East Powell Road, 43035, being 12.63 acres located on the southwest side of East Powell Road, 480 feet north of Worthington Road, from R Rural and LC4 Limited Commercial Districts to LAR3 Limited Apartment Residential District. The applicant is MP Limited, care of Dave Perry, agent David Perry Co. Incorporated. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Far North Columbus Communities Coalition is approval. And I would first like to motion to request that we amend this to an emergency. The applicant needs this in order to have the ordinance passed for the pending real estate closing. So again, I request to amend this to emergency.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And now, President Klein, I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you. Our next ordinance, which is a companion ordinance to the one that we just passed, 0619-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3312.09 AL, 3312.13 driveway, 3312.25 maneuvering, 3312.29 parking space, 3312.49 minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3312.51 loading space, 3321.01 dumpster area, 3333.16 fronting, and 3333.25 perimeter yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 3780 East Powell Road, 43035, to allow multi-unit residential and/or assisted living facility developments with reduced development standards in the LAR3 Limited Apartment Residential District. The applicant is MP Limited, care of Dave Perry, Agent David Perry Co. Incorporated. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. The city department's recommendation is approval. Far North Columbus Communities Coalition recommended approval. I would first like to request to amend this ordinance to an emergency.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And I now move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And our final ordinance this evening is 0661-2016, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3312.13B, driveway, 3312.49, minimum numbers of parking spaces required, 3321.05B1 and B2, vision clearance, 3332.18D, basis of computing area, 3332.21D, building lines, 3332.27, rear yard, 3333.18D, building lines, 3333.22, maximum side yard required, 3333.23B, minimum side yard permitted, and 3333.24, rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 180 Detroit Avenue, 43201. To permit multi-unit residential development with reduced development standards in the AR1 and AR3 apartment residential districts, and to repeal Ordinance 1924-2015, passed July 27, 2015. The applicant is Likens Companies, care of Donald Plank, attorney Plank Law Firm. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. The city's department's recommendation is approval. Italian Village Commission recommended approval. And the applicant has requested that we amend this to an emergency in order to have the related permits for the project issued in time. So I would first request that we amend this to emergency.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
And now I move for passage.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
Thank you, President Klein. I would just like to announce that we are having our first on-site visit with the zoning committee tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. at the property at Ulrey Road. So thank you to all of my colleagues who will be in attendance. And we look forward to continuing the on-sites as we continue to look at ordinances and variances for the development throughout our city. Thank you, President Klein.
Thank you, Chair. Any other business to come before council in regular meeting number 16? May I have a motion to adjourn? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stinziano, Tyson, President Klein.
We stand adjourned.